Hey there guys, I'm Will and welcome to FP1. Now, Williams, it's quite a topical team at the moment. No one really knows what's going to happen to them and where they're going to go in the near future. But one thing they have established for themselves in the last couple of years is a really solid young driver academy. 4 very good drivers that we're going to talk about today. And I'm not alone with this one as well. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Keira Megan from Keira Megan F1. Keira, how are you? How's it going at the moment?
Hello, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm grand. Enjoying the introverted life of quarantine.
Oh, it's amazing. I've got plenty of time to do all my videos, got plenty of time to, mark up some new things of what I want to do, and I'm quite liking it. Even though there's no racing, so that's the downside of it. But other than that, I'm quite liking it.
Yeah, I mean, we got about a month to go until Austria, hopefully anyway, presuming that the situation carries on like it's predicted to. And I'm looking forward. That first race back is going to be tasty. I think you've got several drivers on there that might be a little bit out of touch with the racing, and it could be an exciting. It could be, I think, an action-packed couple of weeks in Austria, but that remains to be seen. But yeah, Williams, I guess the first thing I got to ask is what was your opinion on this morning's news with obviously their financial figures coming out and that contract with Rocket being terminated.
Well, I mean, we all knew it was happening in the background. We all knew that there was things going on. They were struggling. We knew that. Claire came out every weekend. She was very open. The whole team were very open about the fact that they are struggling financially. And I don't know. I didn't expect this Rocket thing. I thought Rocket were on the up. I've never really looked at it in depth. I've never really looked at it in, properly, but I've seen that they've got partnerships with Venturi now in Formula E. They were sponsoring the race, We Are the Race, the Legends Cup and things like that. So I thought Rocket were on the up, but actually when you look at it deep down, they're not. And I've read a lot of things, they're in millions and millions of pounds of debt with Williams. So in a way, I think it probably is a smart choice for Williams. They do need to clear this up. They can't get in any more debt. But it's very sticky. Somebody does need to pick them up again, because if not, they will go very, very quickly out of Formula One, and that is something that we do not want to see. And I can't even believe I'm saying it. I can't even believe we're thinking about the fact that Williams might not be in Formula One in 6 months' time. It's just crazy.
It is genuinely frightening, and what happens to the grid and what happens to the driver market then would absolutely take off if that happened. And losing 2 seats on the grid is really something that we can't afford to do in Formula One at the moment. Obviously, going back to Rocket, the rumoured numbers about £10 million that Rocket owed Williams. That's obviously not been confirmed, and because Williams is a public company, they're not allowed to talk openly about it. Whether we'll ever know, I'm not too sure, but I guess at least this has kind of happened a lot easier and a lot better than the whole Rich Energy situation that Haas did back last year.
Definitely.
You never know. Rich Energy might just pop back. They say, what, we'll try to buy Williams out. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever's in charge of them now has a pop on Twitter or Williams' story comes out. But let's pray we don't see those again.
I do not want to see them again.
I mean,
not in a hurry.
I like a black and gold livery, but Rich Energy can go do one, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So if we start with the 4 drivers that we've got Roy Nissany, Jack Aitken, Dan Ticktum and Jamie Chadwick. Let's start with Roy Nissany. So he was signed up to the Williams driver program on the back end of last year. He kind of came out the blue, having not done much in 2019. Had a season in F2 in 2018. Then was signed. Well, actually was allowed to do a test day for Williams in the Abu Dhabi post-season test, which I think shocked a lot of people. And then straight away with that, he was kind of drafted into the young driver program. So, in terms of your, I guess, initial opinion on Roy Nissany, what would that be? How do you view his career so far?
Yeah, he's a bit of a mixed one, isn't he, really? I mean, I think he's about 25 now, so he's not young anymore. And I think he sustained a neck injury at the start of 2019, so that put him out. But I don't actually know whether he had any plans for it anyway. 2018 was really the year I got into Formula 2. And obviously that was the year he was in and out, very, very much in and out of Formula 2 at that point. I don't know what he was doing. He was at 1 minute he had a seat, the next minute he didn't. And, I mean... Roy Nissany you don't look at Roy Nissany and you think, wow, this is an amazing guy. He's been in single seaters since about 2010 now, and nothing really sticks out from what he's done. There's nothing that's, made you go, wow. But I'm actually excited to see what he does for Williams, and I'm actually excited to see what he does for Formula 2, because he's been put a lot have been put on him for Williams. I think he's going to do 3 FP1 sessions, or they were hoping to anyway, probably not now, with Williams for the 2020 season. So they have put a lot on Roy. I think they probably put the most on Roy, which I didn't expect personally. I think obviously with having Dan and Jack as well, I thought they maybe would have put more on them too, but they have put a lot on Roy, and I feel like, you know, it's going to be exciting to see what he does. As I said, he is 25, he is older now, so, you know, whether he's just going to fade away or whether he's going to bounce back in his older, it's weird to say older years when he's 25, isn't it?
Yeah.
But in terms of the other drivers who are like 20 years old, but no, I'm excited to see what he's like, because obviously, you know, in a way, he is a pay driver. You know, he's got a lot of backing, he's got a lot of financial backing, so we know why Williams have picked him up. But whether he's going to drive well and perform, I really don't know.
Yeah, and obviously you mentioned he's back in Formula 2 this year. If we go back to his maiden season 2018, he did do 20 starts, so he did start 20 races. 0 wins, 0 fastest laps. Do you want to take a guess how many poles he got?
0.
Bang on the money with that one. Yeah, it wasn't the best season for him in Formula 2.
No.
Like you said, he didn't really set the world alight. Going through, he had 1 points finish, I think, in round 17, and then wasn't able to contest the last 4 rounds of the season, but I think he was then moved on at Trident. So, yeah, it's not a particularly brilliant start. Obviously, he's with Trident this year. Trident, in terms of their competitive order in the F2 grid, have never really been up there, I guess. They've kind of been sort of sat in the midfield to the lower down spots on there. So, how well he's actually going to do here, but you do make a good point in regards to, you know, he's got those FP1 sessions with Williams, and maybe, you know, maybe it's his technical feedback. I think that's one thing they mentioned after the Abu Dhabi test, that his technical feedback was very, very good for a rookie driver, and for someone who I don't believe before that point had driven a Formula 1 car. So maybe they might want to kind of use him as a simulator driver, and Anthony Davidson, to, you know, not throw too much shade at Anthony Davidson, but perhaps they might kind of use his technical knowledge and his technical expertise to improve the car from a factory side of things, rather than necessarily on track in the actual races. I'm just not sure. If Roy did get into Formula 1, let's say he steps up, let's say Russell moves to Mercedes and Roy is the one they pick to move into that Williams seat for 2021, presuming they're still on the grid, what would you think his prospects would be? Would he get anywhere, or?
I don't think that would be a good move from Williams. I think, as you said, I think he'd be good for testing. You know, I don't know what his feedback's like to the team. He might be really good. You know, there's some drivers that really get involved and they really help. Their feedback is instant, especially a lot of the like Anthony Davidson, Karun Chandok, the ones that do the sim testing. They've got really, really good and really in-depth feedback that they can give to people. And maybe it's that Roy is good at that, and they might try and keep him in that, you know, area of the team. But if he was to step up, I just think he'd be very average, and I feel like any teammate he probably has, I don't think, you know, he wouldn't do a George Russell completely dominate like he did, like George did with Robert. I just feel like Roy would be a very average driver, and it's unfortunate to say, and I'd love to think that maybe he could turn it around, but I think, you know, that there's no like fire from when I've seen, you know, his driving before. There's nothing that stands out. You know, if you think of a Max Verstappen that will, you know, send it anywhere and everywhere, even a Dan Ticktum, like, you know, he'll drive on the edge. I just don't quite get that same buzz from Roy. So I don't know. I don't think that would be a good move from Williams, but obviously they kind of have to go where the money is at the moment. So I don't really know if they've got much choice in the matter of what drivers they'll pick for their lineup.
To be fair, that's very true. And I guess out of the assortment I was going to talk about today, Roy Nissany has the most money behind him. So maybe it's not as far off of a prospect as we thought. But let's move on then. Jack Aitken's the next one I've got on my list. And yeah, Jack is a very likeable driver. He's done a lot of work for companies like WTF1, and he's definitely made a very good image, a very positive image about himself on the grid as, yeah, someone who's kind of like a Daniel Ricciardo, I guess you could say, someone who's quite outgoing and, well, you know, have a bit of fun, have a bit of a laugh. In terms, you know, he was obviously with Renault in the Renault Driver Academy for quite a long time. And then, well, it's kind of ambiguous as to whether he was dropped or whether he left. I think he left. It was never really confirmed their reasons for splitting, apart from the fact it was kind of on neutral terms. That was at the end of 2019 anyway, and very quickly he announced that he would be signed as the test and reserve driver for Williams Racing, and that excited me. I think given Williams' history and in promoting their test and reserve drivers, look at Russell, look at Latifi, Sirotkin is just 3 previous examples. At least at that point, put Aitken really as a prime candidate to step up to that team, were someone like Russell to move on or Latifi to not really, hit the ground running as we kind of expect him to. So obviously, now they've built up quite a large driver network. But Jack Aitken, what would your opinions on him be?
I really like Jack. I think Jack's really nice. Obviously, on and off track, he is just a really great guy. But obviously, he's been with Renault since 2016. They seemed pretty tight. I think out of all of the Renault junior drivers last year, he was definitely the one that was the most linked with the team. He worked the most closely with the team. He really bigs up the team. Like any interview you saw, he'd be thanking Renault for everything. But I did get a feeling at the end of last season that I don't know how much longer they can hold on. Obviously, they have Christian Lundgaard, Max Futrell, Guan Yu Zhou. They've got really strong drivers. And I felt like Jack was falling back a little bit. As much as he did come 5th in the championship last year, it kind of felt as if Jack was falling back, and I did think, I don't know how much longer Renault can keep him. So when I saw the news last year, I know that there's probably only about, I don't even know, there might have been like a day or less than that between his departure from Renault announcement and then his announcement to Williams. And in that gap, I was quite worried for him, because it could have easily been, a drop, and then, he could be gone. It's so quick to be gone out of Formula 2. It's so quickly to be gone out of that paddock. And I was a little bit worried for him. So to see Williams pick him up, I was actually quite shocked in a way, because I think he was the first announcement, other than obviously Jamie, because she'd been with them the year before. And it was quite a shock to me, because I don't know, I never saw Williams in a way to start up such a driver program. They've always had an odd couple, like they've had Jamie and then they had Nikki and everything, but they never really had a team. So when I saw when I saw Jack being announced, I thought, no, this is really good, and I'm really, really pleased for him. He really does deserve it. He's a good driver. He really is. I just feel like he's never first. He's always second or third, but he's always there or thereabouts. But he's never on top, if that makes sense. But I feel like he'd be really good for the team. I think he gives really good feedback. I think he'd do a lot for his team, especially like how he was with Renault. I feel like he'd do, he'd really be there for them, and he'd support them, and I think he'd give them what they want. So I'm really, really happy about Jack being there, to be honest with you. I really like him. And obviously British as well. Obviously, I know he's, dual nationality or whatever, but he is, half British, and I think that's really important to keep that in Williams.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned 2019, he did come 5th, picked up 3 wins and a lot of podiums in that season. And I think, with Jack, he's one of those drivers who is quite consistent. He's not necessarily the one that's going to be on pole and winning every single race, but he's going to be that driver if you want a consistent point scorer, which, to be honest, a team like Williams, that's the kind of driver they need right now. Yeah, they need someone who brings in the money, but they could also do with someone, let's say if Russell does leave, they'll need someone who's very competitive, and obviously Jack and George were teammates back in the ART days. So, there's history there. So if he was to step up and replace Latifi, those two got on fine. But mentioning that season, 2018, it wasn't brilliant. 11th, while George went on to win the championship that year. Did pick up a win in Catalonia, but I think, like you said, last year, now he got out of that rookie year, he was a lot more confident, a lot more kind of happy with, with the car and with the team as well, with Campos. Sticking with Campos this year, what do you think his Formula 2 prospects could be?
Yeah, I'm hoping that he does really well this year. It's going to be difficult because 2018, as you said, George completely dominated, and that is the worst when your teammate dominates you. You could do really well. Like, for example, Valtteri Bottas he's done really well, but because Lewis has dominated, it just makes you look worse. And I feel like that's what happened with Jack, and he didn't do great in 2018. Obviously, he did pick it up in 2019, but in a way, 2019 they didn't have that rookie coming in and stealing everything. A lot of years like Charles Leclerc 2017, even Pierre Gasly 2016, George Russell 2018, they've always had someone that's just came in there and dominated. And last year they didn't, and I feel like that did help Jack. But obviously this year we've got Robert Schwartzman coming in, Marcus Armstrong, we've got Christian Lundgaard, Felipe Drugovich. We've got so many drivers coming in from Formula 3. I just feel like this is going to be a now or never year. He's got to prove himself against these drivers that are coming up, because if not, he's just going to fall back and back, because these drivers are going to take over Formula 2 like we've seen in the past. So I'd like to hope that it does go well. I feel like he's got a good relationship with Campos. I feel like last year went really well for him. Obviously, he's got Somalia as his teammate. I don't know much about him, so hopefully, we can see more about him and Campos, and Jack can kind of build a good team around him in a way. Hopefully, he can, really dominate and be the number one driver in the team for this year, if we do get started this year, which hopefully we will for Formula 2. But I'm really excited for Jack. As I said, I really like Jack. I really hope he does well. He deserves it. He is a good driver. I just feel like he's always been shadowed over by somebody else. And I feel like once he gets his opportunity, he really does shine. And he's got those, certain races, as you said, where he can just dominate and he can just have such a good race. But other times he can just be like P9 or something. And yeah, it's a little bit touch and go. But I'm hoping that he has a really good year, because he definitely does deserve it. And obviously, with Williams back in, hopefully it can, really support him for his career in Formula 2 this year.
Exactly. And obviously, also with F2, you've got those rookie drivers coming in. You've also got to think about those rookies from last year that are carrying on with their second year in F2, which is in general a lot stronger. So you think like Guan Yu Zhou, Mick Schumacher, obviously, Callum Ilott, who's now stepped up with, I guess, one of the leading teams in Uni Virtuosi. So there is a bit of a worry there, and he could fall behind. He's 24 as well, so around a very similar age to Nissany. So there's again that worry that he, like you said, he could kind of get overshadowed and kind of slip back and slip out of that championship if he doesn't really turn the gears up and kind of make this year his.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So if we move on to the next one, then Dan Ticktum. Okay, this is this is an interesting one. So, I mean, if you don't know who Dan Ticktum is, you're probably living under a rock. But he obviously was a Red Bull Junior for a very long time, but was dropped from that program. I think was it last year? I think it was around this time last year actually, and has recently signed to Williams and is going to be contesting Formula 2 with Dams. Now, obviously, the issue with Dan Ticktum is if you go back to, I think it's 2015 when he was in, I think it was Formula Renault or Formula 3, and he caused a large crash onto the safety car where he deliberately took out the leader because he was not happy with the move he'd made on him earlier in the race. If that doesn't kind of sum up who Dan Ticktum is, there you go. That's going to be an incident that's going to always overshadow his career. For that, he was banned for a year, of course, with a second year kind of put on hold, and if he didn't do anything else. Now he's trying to make a name for himself again. What are your opinions on Dan?
Do you know what? Right, so it's so difficult because I don't know is the honest answer. From say last year, I've never really properly watched Dan race, but you hear so many stories about all the things that he's done. He's a very passionate driver, but he can get very, very angry very quickly. He's done very silly things. He's been all over the place, like you said. He's with Red Bull since 2017. Got dropped probably because he was all over the place. Last year, I think he'd done like 4 or 5 different series. He wasn't really in one place. So in a way, I think it's good that Williams have picked him up. It's a very risky move. But I think it's good that they've picked him up and he's got his seat into Formula 2, because I do really want to see what Dan does. I did have a perspective on Dan, that he was a horrible guy, didn't like him. Obviously, the comments that he made about Mick Schumacher, I think that shook everybody. But I think Dan is the person I'm probably most excited to watch in Formula 2 now, which is very weird for me to say. But you see all these things about Dan, you've seen him be an idiot, and Formula 2 is a place where you can either shine or you can completely ruin your career. So I'm excited to see what Dan can do. I've actually been watching a lot more of Dan Ticktum recently on Twitch. He's doing a lot of Call of Duty streams. I've been watching Twitch way too much. when I looked at my screen time, it was absolutely awful. But anyway, I've been watching Dan more, and I really like the guy. And it's so weird for me to say that, but I think people do jump to a conclusion. He's very much Marmite. He can get very, very angry very quickly. And it's weird because you can really relate. I know this sounds weird, but you can really relate to his Call of Duty gameplay, to his real life racing, because in an instant he can switch and he can get so angry. And I feel like that's kind of his personality, and that's how he is, because you can see that on the racetrack. You can see 1 minute he's fine, and the next minute, if something happens that he doesn't like, he will just do the stupidest thing without thinking about it. And I guess that just is Dan. I don't think you can ever get that out of him. I don't think you can ever get that out of his head. But I hope that he can turn the tables in a way this year, and I hope he can prove himself, because when he drives fast, he drives fast. He's won Macau twice. He is a good driver, but I don't know about Dan. He's either gonna do really well or he's gonna be an absolute nightmare. But we'll just have to see what he does.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at his career summary, so obviously 2019, as you see, was kind of all over the place. Super Formula, he didn't finish, so you can't really count that result in. The F3 Winter Series, he started off quite strongly with 2 poles in the first 2 races, but then kind of fell away, and again, wasn't particularly great with his media interviews after that. And then Formula Regional, I think, I don't know whether he started that entire season or not. Macau wasn't great, but if you go back to 2018, and I guess the back end of 2017, Macau 2017, he won that, albeit slightly flukily at the last corner. Formula 3 in 2018, he came second to Mick Schumacher, and I guess again that was overshadowed by his comments of Prima cheating. But yeah, Dan Ticktum basically.
Yeah,
and then Macau 2018, he dominated, and that really showed his class. He was quick, and he was a talent for the future. I guess now if we relate this back to the team he's in, and right now the last thing that Williams really need is a driver that's not going to be great with sponsors due to his controversial history, his controversial comments to the media, and B, a driver that, if he gets angry, will have red mist and turn F1 into one of the Need for Speed games. So it's a tricky situation for Williams as to whether they even consider giving him a go, because he'll be quick, but how much money could he cost the team? That's the big worry.
Exactly. And I feel like Williams don't have the money. Even one crash, like one front wing, is so much money for them. They don't have the money to do it. And yeah, with Dan, I mean, I don't know much about his financial backing. I don't know. I guess he's got a good one, for him to be picked up into Formula 2 and with Williams. I guess he's bringing something into the team. I don't think you'd really risk Dan Ticktum unless, there was a good reward with it. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how much actual, time in the Williams Formula 1 car he's going to have. But I don't know. I feel like hopefully I'd like to think that Dan would be respectable and would drive properly in a Formula 1 car. But you just don't know. He's such an unpredictable guy. I really don't know what he's going to do. Obviously, he's with Dams for 2019, partnered up with Sean Gallale. That will be very interesting, I think. I didn't see it coming from Dams. They had such a strong lineup last year. I didn't expect the 2 probably most controversial drivers to be in one team, but they are there. We'll just have to see what happens with Dams. Obviously, they're champions from last year. It's just, I don't know. I didn't expect it from Dams, but it's exciting. It makes it exciting, and I'd like to see what Dan does. I'd like to give him the benefit of the doubt, because he's a nice guy. He really is. And he's got the speed. It's just whether he, ruins it in that split angry second that he gets. But I hope he doesn't. I hope he I hope he kind of turns a leaf, and I hope he shows what he's capable of, because he really is fast when he wants to be. Yeah,
and I guess, one advantage at least is, he'll get all that KFC from Gallale's KFC sponsorship.
Exactly.
But, it's, like I said, I think this year is going to really define Dan Ticktum as to whether he is really that driver that, has made mistakes in the past, but can turn that around, or whether really, a leopard can't change its spots, and he'll go back to that angry, stupid Dan that we've kind of seen in the past.
Exactly. And I also feel like a lot of the junior categories that he's done, they aren't always accessible for people in different countries and things like that. Not everything is televised, so people just hear what they what's been reported from the media from Dan, or what videos they've seen on YouTube. And Formula 2 isn't as accessible as I'd like it to be, but it is for most people. So people are going to see Dan weekend after weekend. They're going to see Dan driving. So I think people can properly form an opinion on him. So I feel like this year definitely will be make or break for Dan.
Yeah, especially in Formula 2, obviously it's gained a lot of popularity in the last 2 seasons, and the way it's been televised and the way it's, I guess, also been pushed in the media and in the Formula 1 games as well. A lot more people are turning their attention to F2 and these stars of tomorrow. And to be fair, sometimes the racing can be better than Formula 1 because these guys are a bit trigger happy every now and then.
Definitely. Yeah, I love it. Oh, my highlight of my weekend is when it's a Formula 2 race, honestly.
Yeah, exactly. Go to the French Grand Prix, you're like, oh, well, it's going to be a bit rubbish in Formula 1. But, F2, Galeo's going to smash into his teammate and cause a train wreck. But poor Galeo, we're slacking him off a bit today. Let's move on to the last driver then, Jamie Chadwick. So Chadwick is very, very popular at the moment. Obviously, W Series champion, the first ever W Series champion, causing quite a lot of rifts in the motorsport community, being, I guess, the best placed female driver to maybe make that step up into Formula 1. Only 22 years old, so still quite young, still got quite a lot of years ahead of her before she kind of hits that, I guess, I don't want to say barrier, but that issue that maybe Nissany and Aitken are starting to hit where they're getting a little bit old and, pushing into that Formula 1 boundary is becoming harder and harder. Obviously, she's doing, I think, the W Series again this year, trying to get into some sort of F3 Asian Championship as well. What are you thinking with Chadwick? What's your opinion on her?
I really like Jamie. I was really excited for the W Series when it set up last year. I love seeing women in motorsport. Obviously, I'm a female myself. I do content creating, so it's so nice to see more females in the sport. And I was really excited for W Series, and she just dominated. Like, there's no two ways about it. They're all in the same machinery. They literally swap cars. They swap mechanics every weekend, and at any point she was there. She was unbelievable. I really, really like Jamie. And it's very easy to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh, Jamie's she's not really the best, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But she is. She just drove so well. And yeah, being 22, it's an okay age. It's a good age. She's kind of in the middle. She's not too young. She's not too old. She's got some experience behind her. In a way, when I think she was her speech on TV on Channel 4 after she'd won the W Series. She was saying, she hopes to be back in W Series the next year. And I don't know whether, in a way, that kind of not pushed her back, but I kind of expected her to maybe try and get a seat in FIA F3 or something like that. She's done W Series. I thought she would have, tried to have moved on and tried to, build up into that, F1 Grand Prix weekend. So it's still going to be nice to see her in W Series again. I feel like it's going to draw a lot more attention to W Series, especially if the people, who just heard about it last year and not watched it. I definitely think there'll be more people watching it this year because everyone knows Jamie Chadwick now. I think it helped her being at the Grand Prix weekends with Williams as well. She was on TV a lot. She was, doing a lot of commentary. She was doing a lot of interviews. And I really like her. I just think she's so fast. She's so good. And it's so good for Williams to pick it up, especially, Claire being deputy team principal. It's showing that females do deserve to be in Formula 1 and deserve to be in motorsport. And I'm excited to see what Jamie does. Obviously, she's their development driver, so she's going to help Williams a lot. I feel like she's got a lot of knowledge. And yeah, I think she's a quarter of her way to her super license. So she's getting there. She is really getting there. And I'm just excited to see what she does with Williams.
That might be one of the reasons why she's staying with the W Series this year. Obviously it's getting super license points. I don't think it gave you super license points in 2019, to my knowledge, but they've now amended that so it will give you those super license points. And one of the benefits of that series is it is completely neutral. As you said, they change cars, they change engineers. You go into an F3 team, let's say FIA F3, and unless you're with, say, Prema or one of the other top teams, you're gonna kind of struggle to get up there consistently. And what you kind of find with, I guess, Prema and ART, the two big teams in FIA F3 at the moment, it's, if you can get into one of those two teams, you're going to get somewhere quite high in the championship, but it's not a given. Now, I think, again, this is going to be another kind of make or break year for Chadwick, similar to Dan Ticktum. If she can perform again in the W Series, then maybe step up to FIA F3. If, let's say she's a double champion in the W Series, that's got to guarantee you at least a fairly high up seat in F3. maybe even F2. I mean, I'm not too sure. I think it's the same F3 cars that they're using in the W Series, so it wouldn't be too much of a switch in that regard. She'll know how the car works and how it handles. If we look at F3 at the moment, you've got Sophia Flores as the, I think it's the, she's the only female driver in there. I think she's the only driver that's maybe ahead of Chadwick in terms of that path of F1, at least if you look at it as a linear progression. But I wouldn't be surprised to see Chadwick maybe move up to F2 if she can do well enough in this W Series. And that would obviously be a massive thing for female drivers. And Williams as well are a team that have promoted that in the past. If you look at Susie Wolff, who got a practice outing with the team in, I think it was Silverstone 2014 or 15 off the top of my head, which obviously sadly didn't last very long due to mechanical issues, but it's something they've pushed in the past. And obviously Claire Williams as well is a massive advocate of having women in Formula One, and yeah, it'd be a really nice success story as well.
Yeah, no, completely. I completely agree. I guess that does make sense that she'd stay in W Series to get the super license points. In a way, it's an easy way for her to build them up, because I have no doubt in my mind that she's not going to be at the top. She is going to dominate again. I just don't see anybody else really gonna take over. I still feel like she's going to dominate this year. But yeah, in terms of the W Series, I don't really know. I mean, I know obviously they are still Formula 3 cars, but I don't know on what level you'd then step up to. Like, is it a step up to go to FIA Formula 3, or is it a step up to go to Formula 2? I'm never quite sure, but I would love to see her, probably in Formula 2 more than Formula 3. I think Formula 3 can be very messy. There's a lot of drivers. You can easily get lost in it, like you said. So it would be nice to see, hopefully, she dominate again in W Series and get a step up into Formula 2, because she really does deserve it. And obviously, Sophia as well, wondering where she'll be going. Depends on what she does in Formula 3 this year. But I think W Series would be a really good way for her to show again that, she hasn't just done this 1 year as a fluke. She can do it again, and she can come back fighting. So it'll be really exciting to see what she does. I'm really rooting for her. She really does deserve it. She's a really fast girl, and hopefully with Williams' partnership as well, they can really get her up there and get her career going.
Yeah, I guess briefly mentioning Sophia Flores as well. You've got to kind of feel for her. Obviously, given that accident in Macau in 2018, she's someone that you really want to get behind, I think. And now she's obviously made that step into F3. It's going to be exciting to see how she does. I mean, if Reconathan can get into F2, then surely from wherever he came from, I don't know what he was in before, but it wasn't great.
Boss GP, I think it was. I think I searched him. He was on Boss GP. I didn't even heard of it before. What is that?
All I know is that he was in the series that he won because he was the only driver that completed every event. So if he can get into F2, then surely Chadwick can make the step up from W Series, so she can impress. And Chadwick could also bring a large amount of publicity with it. She'd be the first woman driver into Formula One. That's got to give you some sort of sponsors from the Williams side of things, and even having her in their junior program has got to be a really good step forward for them. And I don't want to put it as if they're kind of using her as a marketing opportunity, but they definitely benefit from having a female driver in that team. I cannot remember off the top of my head. It might have been back in the 70s or the 80s last time we had a female racing in Formula 1. But it would be massive for not to say the sport. Well, no, not just the sport is what I mean. I mean the entire world as well. We've got a male-dominated sport, and then all of a sudden we've got this female driver who's very competitive and very, very quick breaking onto the scene. So yeah, it could be incredibly exciting for Chadwick. She's obviously got quite a lot riding on the back of her, and it's going to be interesting to see where she goes.
Yeah, completely. I think it's also, making people respect Williams even more than they do now, because you've got Ferrari, you've got Mercedes, kind of. I don't really know what their junior program's doing. They've got about 2 of them in there. But Red Bull, Renault, Ferrari, they've just focused on the guys. So it's actually really nice for Williams to have looked at the girl drivers. And I know that not all of them are on the level, but to have picked Jamie out and to give her a chance, I think is massive. And I've got a lot of respect now for Williams. Obviously, I always already did, but it's even more so, to have picked her up and, really given her a chance to fight up, because it's not easy being a woman in motorsport. We know that it's so male dominated. So to see her building up, and obviously, as you said, Sophia coming back from her accident, for her to have a chance in the Campos in Formula 3 is going to be really good. And I'm really excited to see these females in Formula 1. I feel like we're definitely making a step up, especially in the last year or so. And I'm excited to see where Jamie gets to.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of just one step at a time, isn't it? And I think, within the next 10 years, I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe Chadwick, maybe another female driver. So there's quite a lot of young and up-and-coming prospects in W Series at the moment make that step into Formula 1. And it'd be a really nice thing to see. So I guess as kind of like a lasting comment then, out of the drivers that we've talked about, let's say we lose one of the Williams drivers at the end of next year. Who do you think is best placed to step up into that team and take that driver position?
Right. So I don't think Jamie's ready. Obviously, she probably won't have her super license points anyway. So I don't think Jamie would be ready for that. I wouldn't be excited to see Roy. I don't feel like there's anything, exciting that comes from him. So it's going to be out of Dan and Jack. I know how Jack drives. I know how he's going to be. I feel like Jack would be good. Jack would be consistent. But you know what? It really depends on how well Dan does this year. It really depends on whether he completely ruins it or whether he shines. But I would probably, I can't believe I'm saying it, would quite like to see Dan Ticktum in the Williams. I really would. I mean, I feel like he's so fast, and I feel like if you were to put him next to Jack, I feel like he's just got more balls and he's got more oomph to want to go. And I really, really, now I'm saying this, he's better back it up and do it. I just really hope he's going to show everyone what he can do in Formula 2 this year. So, I mean, is Dan ready? I don't know. Their safest bet would probably be Jack. If they're going to go financially, I think Roy has got a really big financial backing. If they're going to risk it, or if Dan's going to do something, amazing in Formula 2, I'd want to see Dan. I want to see a little bit of chaos, I'd like to see an unpredictable driver. It's a little bit like a Max Verstappen. You don't know what you're going to get, or like a Fernando Alonso. So I'd say Dan. What about you?
So for me, I'm gonna discount Chadwick for the same reason as you. I don't think she's ready, and she probably won't have the super license points anyway.
Yeah.
If we look at the other three, then obviously Nissany, Aitken, Ticktum, all three of them in F2. For me, it's going to be whoever does best in F2. And in terms of ability and, I guess, the teams that they're driving for, Nissany is going to be out of the equation kind of straight away. Trident, they're okay in the midfield of F2, but they're not going to be challenging for wins on a consistent basis.
No.
Jack Aitken, Campos, they've been coming on a lot more. Ticktum with Dams, which are the team's champions of last year. So I guess if you had to have a look, Dams are probably the better place to get get their drivers higher up in the championship order. For me, I think I'm gonna. I want to. It's a tricky one, I want to say, I want it to be Aitken, but I think it will be Dan. So kind of the same sort of lines as you.
Yeah.
And yeah. I think Dan is that more aggressive driver, and it's gonna be, if he does something stupid in F2, it will go to Aitken. So I think it's a very fine line between those two drivers. At the same time, if Aitken either tanks or does incredibly this year, then it's going to go to Aitken. This is all dependent on if there is a seat opening up at Williams, if there are seats at Williams at all. So I'm going to say Dan, but I'm not confident on it. And I don't know, and unlike you, I don't know whether I'd want to see it. I don't know, I'm one of those people that still always kind of... I don't know whether it's the Northern Irish side of me that's just always holding a grudge, but it's just that having seen the incident with Dan in Silverstone and the way he reacted and the way he's reacted to the media in the past, I'm kind of sat here like, he's a driver that is good enough for Formula 1, but I don't think he deserves to be in Formula 1.
Because of his actions, yeah.
Yeah, basically, like an opposite Lance Stroll. Yeah. So it's I'm not sure, but I'll say Dan Ticktum for now. Watch now how Roy Nissany gets announced as a Williams driver tomorrow.
Yeah,
but hey, that's bound to something like that's bound to happen. So cool. Any lasting comments then? I guess.
I'm really excited for Williams. As much as we've had this worry this morning about their future, they've been really trying to build things back up, and to have I think this is a really strong driver academy. To have this little group of drivers underneath them really shows that they're here for the long run, and Williams really want to stay in Formula 1, and they want to build up this young driver. I mean, to have three of them in Formula 2 and to have one of them arguably the best female racing driver of current time, is so strong, and not many other teams can say that. So I love all of these drivers. I'm really excited to see what they do. I'm really excited for the Formula 2 season. I'm really excited for W Series, and I just can't wait to see, you know, what happens. Because if Williams do stay in Formula 1, which I'm hoping they will, I'm 9 times out of 10 sure that Toto Wolff can't keep George Russell in the Williams anymore. I should think he will be in the Mercedes. Obviously, if Toto even stays at Mercedes, we've seen that rumour going around recently as well. It's all going on. But if there is a seat that comes available, it'll be a really good opportunity for one of these 4. So yeah, I'm just really excited.
Yeah, brilliant. Obviously, you know, 2020 is whenever it finally gets going, is going to be a really exciting year for motorsport. Lots of stories in the background to talk about, and yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how they all play out. Keira, thank you so much for going on the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Obviously go subscribe to Keira's channel as well. Keira, do you want to talk a little bit about what you do on your channel?
Yeah, so I have a channel called Keira Megan F1. I do loads of different YouTube videos all about Formula 1. I only started in January, but I do content creating, I do series, you know, all things you could think of Formula 1. I also run an Instagram and a Twitter account. I do most of my reporting on Instagram, so I'll do more of like the media side of things, you know, the classic, you know, when something happens, I'll post. But on my YouTube channel, I just love to do fun videos all about Formula 1. I cover Formula 1, I cover Formula 2, I cover Formula 3, and I cover Formula E mainly, but obviously, you know, dibble and dabble into other things. So yeah, if you would like to check me out, I'd really appreciate it. My YouTube is Keira Megan F1. But yeah, thank you very much for having me, Will.
No worries. Of course, all links to that will be down in the description below. Keira said, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, hope you have a lovely rest of your week. And let me know down in the comments below who you think could step up to replace either Russell or Latifi in 2021 at Williams. And out of these drivers we talked about, who might be the one that will make it the furthest in Formula 1. Cool. As ever, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and of course subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.